Hey there, sheepdoggers, and welcome to a kind of it's nothing exactly what I've done before, so I guess it's just kind of a unique video. It's really unfortunate that before I did this video, I mean I went off and I did the Plague Inc. Evolve video that you will see before this and earlier, and it's kind of really unfortunate that in the downtime when I was doing other things. Okay, wait on this. Sorry, I just got an announcement saying restart your computer. It's kind of really unfortunate that just before I started this, I was kind of looking around on Twitter, and I did something I don't usually do, which is go and visit the trends. I don't care about the trends. For the most part, I try and ignore the trends because that's where you get the most people. And when you get a whole load of people in as it were, in a room together talking about the same thing, all you get is pointlessness. And if you are on my Twitter, then you will have seen the tweet I sent out just before, a little bit before I posted this video, which basically said, not going to get involved, no point in voicing an opinion when everyone's shouting and no one's listening. Which is, I feel, very important to remember is like, you know, when stuff like this happens, you know, I'm not going to talk about this too much. I've already said I don't want to talk about this, but there's a certain amount of, I just need to get a little, yeah, this is it's the same with everyone else, you know. They just want to get shit off their chest and they just kind of throw it out there. For myself, I have YouTube, and I have, you know, for example, I haven't done it for a while, but my grumble rants, you know, they make me feel better to do, to kind of just, every now and then I just need to get shit out, and, you know, otherwise it messes up my brain. And unfortunately, going to this trending bit on Twitter, like, really, it's all got in my head, and, you know, and the volume of, there were some really good points in there, you know. There were some women, there were some men who put some good stuff out there that, you know, really should be seen, and no one's going to see it because of everyone putting out their fucking, you know, kind of promoting their own ideologies into this vast sea of opinions. And, you know, as I said, everyone's shouting, no one's listening. You know, so like this original point, which was very valid, you know, the kind of yes, all women, you know, it just got drowned. And, you know, it's a very good point that women are treated differently, for the most part. You know, women are treated differently, and women aren't treated equal by a lot of people. The problem here is that when women kind of band together like this, there are a lot of men out there who will either see this as kind of an attack on them, and then they go, not all men, and blah blah blah, and, you know, it just devolves into arguing, everyone kind of chucking their point out there, and it just becomes this pointless exercise in futility. And any point, you know, the topic has been subverted, you know, the issue's been subverted. Now all it is recriminations and blame and angst, and it just makes everyone feel worse. It does nothing to improve the situation. It just, you know, it just gets everyone's back up, and then it's fighting and everything. So in kind of homage to all the women who have put their own personal experiences out there, and, you know, and we're brave enough, because, you know, the second that you say, you know, I this happened to me, that happened to me, you know, etc, there are, of course, going to be those fucking idiot men who jump in and say, you know, you were asking for it, or, you know, you're just a slut, or you shouldn't wear provocative clothing, or whatever, you know. So kind of out of respect to them, I will share something myself. You know, I can't understand how they felt. I can't really sympathize. I can't really empathize, but I can sympathize, kind of thing. So I used to be a bouncer. I used to work on the door. I did that for 2.5, 3 years. I enjoyed it to the extent that it was a nice way to meet people and be social. When I find it very hard to get out, I always have found it very hard to be massively social. I'm more introverted. I'm more I prefer to kind of keep to myself a bit in kind of in the world where I live. And when I was a bouncer, I was subjected to some very kind of, I think people would say, like, if I was a woman, it'd be heavily sexist. But I think it was heavily sexist anyway. It was kind of fueled by drink, fueled by kind of, a whole load of girls on a night out. But, there was a lot of butt pinching. There was a lot of suggestive comments. There was a lot of kind of, just loads of shit like that. Women trying to kind of seduce the bouncer, and like, if I walked through the dance floor, while I was making my rounds, I get my arse grabbed a lot. I'd get women touching me and feeling me up. And even now today, when I go out, because of my beard, I have a lot of people, men and women, who will just come up and grab me, grab my beard, give it a yank. Sometimes it hurts. And the thing is like, I think a lot of that is kind of alcohol fueled. I never walk down the street, really. I will occasionally get people, especially people with beards, saying to me like, "Oh, really nice beard," and stuff like that. But yeah, no, I will get women coming up to me and grabbing me and like grabbing my beard and going, "Oh, I love your beard," and like, hands all over my face, which I have never done to anyone. I've never grabbed someone. I've never kind of invaded someone's personal space and made them feel uncomfortable like that. When I get drunk, I'm very relaxed. I'm very kind of sit down and chill out and enjoy talking to people. But I think obviously my own opinion is just my own opinion, and it's probably very likely wrong for a lot of people. But the way I see it is, the problem is not men, the problem is not women, the problem is the ignorant, the stupid, people who don't think, people who don't consider other people, kind of important, and society, I mean, from my perspective in this situation, the way men are viewed as being, impervious to kind of sexual advances, in that sense, there's no kind of like, oh yeah, men don't have to worry about rape, etc., etc., etc. I have never at any point in my life been afraid of being raped, but that doesn't mean I can't be made uncomfortable in a situation, for example, where I'm working or where I'm out for a night out trying to have some fun, and women, and men will just come up to me and ruin my night, like really, really kind of make me feel uncomfortable and stuff. And that's the point, is that it's not, you really have to think about who is promoting this, not who's promoting this stuff, who is continuing this stuff, who's to blame, or who's the problem here. And it's not men. You can't say, it's not men and it's not women. It's just the idiots, it's the stupid, it's the ignorant, it's the thoughtless acts of people in the moment. I'm not even saying like it's always the same people. Sometimes people just don't think. Sometimes people are affected by outside stimulus. You get a group of girls together out on the piss, and they can sometimes, as a former bouncer, I can tell you, they can sometimes be much, much worse than men. It's all about the situation. And I said I wasn't going to talk about this for very long, and I have, unfortunately. Also, just so you know, guys, this is, I want to feel, for this next bit, I want to feel kind of like I can sit back and relax and talk to you guys, because these are kind of my own personal tips. This next section is my own personal tips and thoughts and everything on something that's a lot more important to me personally. I'm not a feminist. I'm not a masculinist. I think I think the only thing I can do really is try and treat everyone equally, you know. So if you're a man, if you're a woman, if you're a dick, I'll think you're a dick, basically. If you're a twat, I'll think you're a twat, regardless of masculine or femininity. So next up, be warned, there's going to be some smoking. I'm going to sit back and we're going to talk about kind of mental health problems and just how it's viewed and my thoughts on it, and mostly just my tips from someone who's been through a fair amount of this shit. And you know, I've been very lucky with my parents, but even still, you know, there are tips, there are kind of, I can give you my experiences. Hopefully you can take something away, but if not, at least I've shared with you my experiences. So that's the kind of beginning of the video, and from here on we'll be doing a little bit of smoking, because, you know, in my game videos and stuff, I try and cut out any smoking, anything like that, because there's no point having it in there. For this one, this is me talking about me talking to you. There's no reason to, you know, perpetuate a lie and be like, yeah, I don't smoke, you know, you know, there's no point in pretending, you know, because this is me basically trying to be as honest and as real with you guys as I can. So yeah, my problems, let's call them mental problems, stem from my thyroid problems. You know, my anxiety, my depression, my panic attacks, my irritability, my everything. You know, they've prevented me from doing a lot of things in my life. You know, I can't fly at the moment. I have a deathly fear of flying. You know, it's a mix of being up there, not knowing what's happening, you know, not knowing what's going on, and the fact that you can't escape, you know. I get quite claustrophobic, all that stuff. You know, that's just one example. I'm not good with traveling in general. You know, if I drive, I feel very anxious. I feel on the verge of a panic attack. You know, on the train as well. So, you know, if you have similar problems, I can probably relate a little bit. And there are some really heavy pitfalls. You know, there are some really kind of there's some really insidious stuff that you wouldn't think about. You know, kind of offshoots of the depression, of the anxiety. And one of them is the feeling of being victimized all the time. And I can tell you now, like, if you've been having problems with depression, with anxiety, with panic attacks and everything, expect to lose some friends. You know, it's not really anyone's fault. You know, you can't start thinking like that, because then you'll start to be really, you know, that's a spiral right there. There are so many risks of spirals, and one of them is starting to blame, you know, former friends or friends who don't understand or who don't make the time for you or anything like that. At the end of the day, we all have our lives, and they have to live theirs the same way you have to live yours. And one of the first tips I can give you guys is to always remember that, you know, always consider the other person. Even if they don't consider you as much as you'd like, always consider them. You know, if you send them a message and you're in a bit of a bad strait and they don't reply, don't automatically think that they're ignoring you, because that may not be the case. You know, it's very possible they didn't get the message. You know, they may have lost their phone. There's so many possibilities. You know, the important thing is to remember the times when your friends have been there for you. And, you know, they're like, I'm gonna give one example. My best friend in the entire world, you know him as Cue Ball. There have been times when we haven't got along. There's been times when we've had a disagreement or whatever. But at the end of the day, you know, I think back and I go, you know, there was a time when I had a massive panic attack. You know, like I was terrified of everything. You know, it was just like a massive crash. And, you know, he was like the first person I called, and he talked me down, and he stayed on the phone for me, and he cheered me up. And this is, you know, like a good half an hour, 40 minutes. And he really taught me through that. You know, like this was a really shitty moment in my life, and he really helped me through it. You know, so like even if there have been times when I've been a little annoyed with him or anything, you know, I always remember that. And there have been other times as well when he's, you know, when it's been necessary, he's put his life, you know, he's put his work on hold and come to support me, and you know, I do the same for him. And those are the people, you know, those are the people who are going to get you through this. Like, it's very important to be strong yourself to kind of, you know, build up some internal fortitude. But at the end of the day, you can't isolate yourself. That's very, very important. Is don't isolate yourself from people who will support you, who will help you, you know. And actually, I would say you can make some of your strongest friendships ever when you're in the kind of throes of this thing. And I have been responsible before for the kind of sometimes I meet people and we get along and we get on quite decently and we chat for a while, and you know, we stay in contact. And I am not very good at staying in contact. You know, quite often I'll get fed up with someone ignoring my messages and ignoring my calls or whatever, and I'll kind of just be like, you know, that's it. I can't do this friendship kind of thing. And I'm aware of that, but it still happens, you know. So I'd say, you know, just do your best and try not to disappoint yourself. Don't expect to keep all of your friendships. Don't expect to kind of, you know, to always be the best you can, because sometimes you'll just be too heavily affected by by your problems, basically, by the depression, by anxiety, by all these things, you know, and it can really hit you hard sometimes and just smash into you, and it's really difficult to describe. You may have experienced it if you have similar problems to me, or it just, you know, we all have problems, I think. So yeah, friends are very important to help you get through and to almost to distract you from the really bad times. So yeah, you know, it's not the best. Anyway, other things is, for example, with myself, I wasn't able to work, so I was living with my parents. And one thing my mum gave me a lift to the hospital. We had to talk about my medication, and we had a quick chat about it. And you know, one of the things I think I've realised, and probably we've realised as time has gone on, is that you get into very bad habits when you kind of go past the point when you should have moved out and, you know, gone to university and stuff. You know, I was living at home with my parents because I couldn't work, because I couldn't really progress any further. And you get into some very bad habits of kind of, it starts off where you're a little bit fed up with, you know, the same conversations, the same arguments, and it gets to the point where you will automatically react negatively to any input. You know, any kind of, you know, can you do this, can you do that, it's automatically a negative response, and you just go, you know. And after a while, it's not even just these people, you know, if they're flatmates, if they're your parents, if they're friends, if they're anyone, it will start becoming an automatic response with everyone. So, you know, it starts off with kind of the people you always see, the people you always interact with, and then just anyone who tries to bring up the same topic or the same kind of conversation, you will have an automatic reaction there that is defensive and a bit barbed. And, you know, you really have to try your best to keep a handle on that. But it's difficult, you know. I mean, I've done it myself with people I know and I talk to, and you know they'll say something, and it'll be an automatic reaction where I get very defensive, and I get very kind of, you know, not aggressive, I'd say, but just defensive is the best word. I just get defensive, and I'll snap back probably. So you know, really keep an eye on that, and that can be one of the problems. You know, is if you get into these habits, there's a certain comfort in habits, and if you get into them, especially the bad ones where you snap at people or where you get very defensive automatically, it can really sour your relationship with people. You know, so that's a very dangerous pitfall. And one of the other things, I'm not going to go for much longer because we've gone on for a long time already. But one of the things I did want to talk about, and I feel is important for you to think about, and you know, if you have a friend who has problems like me, who has kind of anxiety, depression, any of these things, you know, there is a certain part of them that wants acknowledgement, that wants, you know, kind of that wants empathy. But if you haven't experienced it, you can't offer empathy, only sympathy. And you know, as we as people who've suffered or suffering or, you know, anything, we have to remember that yes, we want empathy. Some of us may, you know, you may even sometimes want sympathy and everything. And if you don't get it, you can feel very hostile to the person, you know, who just doesn't care. But at the same time, if they do actually offer you some sympathy, you'll quite often feel like they don't understand, like they don't know what they're talking about, you know. So it's kind of, it's a no-win situation. There is no win. The best thing to do is to understand that, you know, the people who are really important are the people who offer support. You know, like regardless of whether they understand, whether they try to understand, as long as they're offering you support, that's the important thing. And you shouldn't get hostile or negative with people who don't understand and who don't try to understand. You know, people who just don't care. You know, there's nothing wrong with them. You can't spend your life getting negative about these things. You know, if someone doesn't understand, if someone doesn't care, it doesn't make them a bad person. You know, it doesn't mean you should hate them. You know, it just doesn't mean, it probably means they're not a great person to be friends with. You know, you don't have to be friends with them. You don't have to, you know, kind of seek out their understanding. And you know, the best thing to do is really not to worry about it. You know, and don't try and feel too sorry for yourself either. It's a very big trap, is, you know, to start considering yourself the victim, to start feeling like no one's been through anything worse than you. You know, to start feeling kind of almost superior to other people because you've got through more than they've got through. You know, that stuff isn't important, because, you know, there is a discrepancy between, you know, people who've been through really rough times and people who've been through just small rough patches and people who haven't had any problems. At the end of the day, the worst thing you've been through is the worst thing you've been through. There are always people who have been through worse things than you, and there are always people who haven't been through things as bad as you. But if you ignore that scale, you know, like the worst thing you've been through, whether it be a broken leg, you know, a really serious surgery, you know, whether you've gone through a rough breakup and you're feeling really depressed and sad, whatever it is, the worst thing you've been through is the worst thing you've been through, and it fucking sucks regardless of what it is. You know, so you can't allow yourself to fall into that thinking of, you know, this person doesn't know what they're talking about. They haven't been through as bad things. Because, you know, personally, I have been through some stuff. I've spoken about it before. You know, it wasn't fun. I haven't enjoyed it. And it's better now, you know, to the point where I can do these videos and I can be jolly and I can do my best to entertain and to everything. And actually, one of the reasons why, sorry, I feel more comfortable like this when I talk about stuff like this. I feel very vulnerable right now, like talking about these things. And yeah, you know, I've had situations where people have judged me on my age, you know, because I'm 29, I'm still quite young. And I've had people, you know, in their 40s, you know, talk about their problems and say, you know, you don't know anything about the world. You're still young. You haven't experienced anything. There's nothing really wrong with you, and etc. etc. And it has annoyed me, you know. I've found myself thinking like, yeah, well, you haven't been through what I've been through. You know, I've gone about a bit. I've seen quite a fair amount, you know, and you know, what the fuck do you know, kind of thing. And at the end of the day, I've realized that you can't devolve into that kind of thinking. You can't, you know, become, because all you'll become is a bitter person with, you know, you'll end up blaming the world. You'll end up hating random people for no reason, you know. And the one thing you don't want to be is bitter, because it doesn't help anything. It doesn't help anyone. It's just, you know, you just end up feeling victimized, and you end up feeling more depressed, more sad, you know, taking your problems out on other people. And that, you know, that's not what you want. You don't want to end up like that. And you know, there are quite a few people out there like that, who will confront you and you know, and kind of diminish what you've been through. And the best thing to do, in my opinion, is to not diminish what they've been through. You know, don't engage. Don't if you know, if they think that you haven't been through much, let them think that. You know, it's not your problem and it's not theirs. And you know, just move on, walk on, and don't let them bring you down. So I think this is a fairly good place to stop. It's almost 30 minutes. Bloody hell, I really can talk, can't I? You know, I hope I've helped you guys. But even if not, you know, you never know. I know there are some people who watch my videos on a regular basis, who watched my older video where I told you what was wrong with me, and etc. And you know, some of you have similar problems to me. Some of you have friends or family with similar problems. So I hope this helps you a little bit. In any way, I hope this video helps you a little bit. You know, I've had a lot of you guys supporting me, subscribing to me, coming to my Twitch, you know, telling your friends and everything. And I mean, it's not much, but I hope with this video I can help you a little bit in return. You know, aside from if you watch a video and you enjoy it, you know, the reason I love making my videos is because I know what it's like to be up all night, have nothing to do, you know, and then you see a video and you just sit down, and it's nice to take your mind off. You know, it's nice to just kind of watch someone else being a little bit silly, you know, making a few jokes, being a bit of an arse, chatting, you know, incessantly. And that's one of the reasons I love doing my gaming videos, you know. This isn't really a fun and entertaining. It may depress some. If it does depress some of you, I am very sorry. I don't mean to do that. But yeah, hopefully, you know, it helps some of you even a little. And you know, I mean, I'm not like a massive voice or anything. I don't think I'm gonna be able to help hundreds and thousands of people or anything. But if I can help a couple of you, I'll be fairly happy, because you know, I've been through a lot of these things and it hasn't been fun. and I don't think I've always done my best with it. And you know, if I'd have had this advice, I don't know, you know, maybe I would have ignored it. Maybe I would have felt too isolated and victimized to take on any advice or anything. But you know, yeah, why not? Why not? So I hope you let's not do the traditional outro. Actually, I hope this video helped you a little bit, guys. If you are suffering from any of these problems, you know, if you just want to tell someone about some of the shit you've been going through, well, sorry, I was going to offer my actual email, but I already get so many emails there already. It's going to be easier because I don't get that many emails at my contact email. So if you do want, if for any reason, email me, contact.sheepdog@gmail.com. I can't promise you my undivided attention. You know, I'm not an agony aunt. I'm probably not able to offer you any special advice. But you know, I mean, if I can help, I may be able to help. You know, it's no promises or anything. But yeah. So maybe I'll hear from a few of you. Maybe not. Don't worry about it too much. As I said, I hope this video helped you. I'm just procrastinating now. I hope this video helped you. I hope, in a way, you enjoyed it. And I'll see you in the next one.